You can increase your family's purchasing power. You can normalize freedom. You will be the first generation millionaire that transitions and normalizes millionaires that follow. You will give birth to new opportunities. You will give birth to freedom. You will give birth to new dimensions. You will normalize. You will normalize freedom. Because freedom does have a dollar amount, but it costs a little bit different to each and every one of us. I think about Moses standing in front of the Red Sea. Nervous because he's confronted with what seems the impossible. He's been taken from a place where he found comfort to do something that he did not know was deep within him. For the majority of his life, he was conflicted because he lived with the Egyptians, took on the ways of the Egyptians, but deep within he had something else. So God asked Moses in that moment, what is it that's in your hand? What is it that's in your hand? And for a minute, Moses looks in his hand and he sees a staff. Now, don't get me wrong, this same staff was turned into a snake that ate other snakes. This same staff, as he got older, was a piece of equipment that kept him upright. But this same staff, in this moment, can be used for something so profound. And sometimes in life, we can be moving with a thing, but not truly know the essence of it. Not truly understand the power that it has in it. And sometimes we have to be reminded of something that's deep in us. There's a belief that has to come out. And so when he asked him what that staff was, he was reminded, he was renewed of his purpose, of his belief, and of his faith. So standing in front of that Red Sea, with the enemy chasing him, with 6,000 of his best chariots, with generations of people who have followed him, believed in him, murmured on the way, the Red Sea was cut in half. But it took a sense of boldness to walk through even what has been done. So I ask you today, before we get started, what is it that you have in your hand? For Moses, it was a staff, but it seemed ordinary. For you, it can be $50. It can be $500. It can be $5,000. It can be $5. But that can be the building block to wealth. See, what happens is on a journey to building wealth, we have to do what Moses done. One, we have to believe that the ordinary can do extraordinary. But even after it's done, we still gotta take the first step. Because before anybody else moved, Moses had to move so that the people who followed understood that this was safe ground. A lot of you have a calling on your life to change the trajectory of your family, to introduce your family to wealth, to introduce your family to freedom. But you must never waver. And you must be willing to lead even when it seems impossible. You must be willing to have the conversation amongst all the noise and disbelief. Because I want you to think for a second, while Moses is standing in front of the Red Sea with just a staff, and he's confused for a minute. I can only imagine the noise of the people behind him. What do we do now, Moses? Because those are the same people complaining in the midst of the desert. So even the people you were trying to lead, even though they want to leave where they currently are, they will still find reasons to complain in the midst of following. You want me to invest my money in what? These bills are due. I ain't got no money for them stocks. I ain't got no money to be trading. But yet they still want to leave where they currently are. I want you to understand, with a little faith and consistency in the market, you can turn the murky waters of poverty into the refreshing waters of prosperity. But it doesn't happen overnight. You gotta wander in the wilderness for a while. You gotta wander in the desert for a while. You gotta get used to the consistent sacrifice on what it takes to get to the promised land. They won't believe you. And as much as you teach them, you have to show them more than you teach them. Because no one wants to believe from a person whose life hasn't changed from the thing that you're saying you're trying to show me. Moses was a great leader because he lived in the desert for 40 years. Let that sink in for a second. He was able to navigate the desert. A place that wasn't familiar to those who were following him, but was very familiar to him. So you got to be willing first to endure the pain so that you can understand how to lead people to a place that they never been. The stock market has truly changed people's lives for generations. We've watched families cement their legacy. We've watched families donate 99% of their wealth and leave 1% of wealth to their family, and their families are still worth $500 million or more. We've watched people's net worth increase by billions of dollars in such a short amount of time. The wealthy have conditioned their offspring on ownership, programmed their kids on investing, cemented legacies for generations after generations. A certain group of people have learned how to leverage legacy, and another group of people have learned how to be privatized and positioned. Anchored. Chastised by economics. How do we change that?